All right, I'm sure you guys got the injury report. I'm sure you'll have questions as it evolves around that. But we had another good practice today. Got through it healthy. Answer any questions.
What happened to Kyle?
We're just trying to make sure he gets to Sunday. It's ankle. It's not a new injury or anything. We're just, like I said, making sure we get him to Sunday.
So is it safe to call it maintenance on the injury, on the surgery from Rebecca?
Pretty much, yeah.
Coach, you talk about there being nothing like experience, actually going out and playing the game. Well, now that Mitchell Trubisky has that experience, does that give him more confidence going into Baltimore as well as the offense around him?
Well, I think, again, it was his first experience, in a regular season game. That's a better question for him, I think. But based on what I've seen, I think there's probably a couple situations that, were learning experiences for him. I think he'll build on that. I mean, based on what I've seen, he's, a pretty even-keeled guy. It's not too big. He's extremely accurate. Then just some of the decision-making things that you learn really by playing, regardless of the position, and particularly at quarterback.
John, how would you compare what he is giving you now compared to maybe the player that got here a year ago or a year and a half ago?
Well, I think, between his coaches and himself, it's been a lot of hard work. And so I've seen improvement, both the knowledge of the game, knowledge of our scheme, and playing faster. I think he's a big, powerful guy. Pad level is always important. You're more powerful when, your pads are lower. And I've seen him develop really in both his run stopping ability as well as the pass rush.
What stands out to you about his personality, just getting to know the guy?
I like him. He's a vocal guy. I think he's got a good personality. I think guys gravitate to him. And I call him an enforcer because really good teams I've been around, a lot of that leadership happens to be bigger people, and they tend to carry a little more weight, and not literally.
With the national anthem issue being one that seemingly has new layers every week, how have you dealt with your locker room and keeping your arms around the whole situation?
Well, I think I've been very, very impressed and proud of the way our guys have handled it. I think all of us are better off when we're united in whatever we do, regardless of what the issues are. I think when things get divided, both sides throw gas on it. I don't think that helps anything. So I think love goes way further than hate, at least in my experience.
Have any players approached you about taking it?
Well, I talk with our players a lot. I think I have good relationships with, really our whole locker room. So we have conversations. I don't know that we've really directed them one way or the other. I think, back to kind of what I just said to you is really kind of my thoughts on it. And I've been very proud and happy about the way our guys have handled it.
Now, what were your discussions been with ownership in regards to the commissioners sending memos and just staying on the same page with all the stuff that comes from the league?
Really not much. I haven't had a lot of discussions about it. I think, we're football coaches and football players and football staff people. I don't think anybody's running for office anywhere. I think, we're here to play football, and so I'd rather all our focus be on that. It's a hard profession. We all get compensated really well to do it, and that's where our focus should be.
What stands out to you on the Ravens defensive side?
I think they have a pretty complex scheme. They do a lot of things, regardless of situationally. They do a lot. They have some veteran guys that tie it together. I think they've been that way for a long time. We competed against a lot of them in the past. They have good players that are opportunistic. I think, You know, they had a bunch of takeaways on defense, which, you know, obviously helps your offense. You know, they've got a good blend of youth and experience, you know, whether it's in whatever level of their defense. I always think it's important because communication's key, you know, especially when, you know, it's playing such a fast game. So that's kind of my first impressions.
Jen, given McPhee's injury history, to what extent do you have to monitor, do you feel you have to monitor how he handles the increased snap counts with Young out?
Not really. You know, I mean, that's way more scientific than I am. You know, I think he gets enough practice to be able to keep his skills honed and have our game plan down for that particular week, and it adjusts each week. You know, and you just get a feel for the game. You know, whether it's conditioning. You know, we have, you know, a guy might be a starter, all right, but you have a wave of guys that play, you know, on defense. So, in particularly up front in the front seven, especially if you're a pass rusher. So, you know, whether a guy gets 25 or 35, I'm more concerned about the productivity of it than really the number.
So not a wear and tear concern?
Well, I mean, this game's got wears and tears on you anyways, you know, so, but not.
Who's had knee injuries to both knees, it would seem maybe more susceptible to wear and tear.
No, I don't really look at it that way. You know, they kind of are what they are. They're where they are right now, and you know, what they've been before. You don't spend a lot of time dealing with that. You know, just got to deal with the present, and I'm pleased with where he is presently.
John, you've been doing this a long time. Short of silent count and just the X's and O's of things in a rookie's first road start, what are the kind of the psychological challenges getting him ready to go into a place that might be a little intimidating?
Well, what we try to do is create the environment. You know, whether it's crowd noise, you know, operating when you can't really hear. You know, there's visual signals as well as verbal calls. You know, but that's true of every team, I think. So you just try to put them in the environment the best you can to prepare them, you know. And crowd noise does mess with you. I mean, it's harder to play on the road. There's no doubt about it. Old movie I learned, there's no place like home. But I think, you know, so you just try to create that environment the best you can. You know, give them the looks. You know, and they do a good job of that. You know, they always have of, you know, giving you unscouted looks and see how you react and try to discombobulate you. And, you know, we'll do our best to deal with that. And I think we have a good plan.
What have you seen from? Oh, sorry.
Go
what have
ahead.
you seen from Kyle Fuller this year? Anything catch your eye about how he's
Well, I
playing?
mean, he's been healthy. You know, I think last year was frustrating. I've mentioned this before. I mean, it's frustrating for everybody. I mean, the player to start with. You know, you work too hard and put too much time in this to not be able to play. You know, it's a lot of work, a lot of preparation, a lot of practice, a lot of off-season conditioning. So I think the fact that he's healthy, you know, that is why he's been way more productive. Good. All right. Thank you.
Jeff, can you take us through your perspective of the 4th and 2, the 4th and 7 there with the timeout, the delay, the punting coming on? What was going on in that sequence?
Yeah, well, we're not going to take the field as a punt team based off of something I want to do. So the communication at that point was that we were going to punt the ball. At some point that changed and tried to make the substitution as best we can at that point.
Are you able to say why it changed there, especially coming out of the timeout when there was some time to make sure that was thought through and the play was in?
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah.
Going against John Harbaugh has been doing it for a long time, obviously, an old special teams guy. How wary do you have to be of fakes, and do you have to be more wary going against him than just an average team?
Yeah, Coach Harbaugh and Coach Rosberg been together there for about a decade. You know, generally speaking, we go through years worth of tape, come up with a reel of fakes, of onsides, of reverses, of big plays, things like that. In a normal week, you know, that reel is going to be somewhere, you know, between 70 and 80 plays, somewhere in there. Theirs is over 200. They've done a really good job there. It's something you always prepare for, but, you know, this week we've run quite a bit against our return groups and our block groups.
What went into I know playing receiver had a lot to do with it, but what went into the Deontay decision, and what do you look at in trying to find his replacement?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to speak to the head coach or the GM about that decision. In terms of his replacement, you know, the best guys available on our roster, try and make it work the best we can.
Jeff Pano down another punt, I think it bounced like the 2 or the 1 and skipped past, I think, Bellamy. In the end, is that just a bad bounce or a missed opportunity? Could Bellamy have fielded that or somehow made that work out?
Yeah, I think anytime a plus 50 punt lands in play in front of the goal line, you know, and you're not able to down it at that point, it's certainly a missed opportunity. We felt like we could have played that a little bit better from a coverage group. Fortunately for us, they held Sherrick, so it went to the 10 instead of the 20. I believe that drive ended up being a safety anyways, but it could have been a ball down to the 3, half the distance from there is the 1.5. Maybe we could have gotten that safety a little bit earlier.
Jeff, what in the decision late to use Eddie Jackson on punt returns to
Yeah, you know, Tariq kind of came up on that previous one. He kind of landed awkwardly a little bit, and you know, sometimes over the course of the game, we feel real comfortable with both those guys catching. And you know, at that point in the game, you kind of knew what style of punt, you know, kind of the circumstance they're punting from close to midfield. It's probably going to be a fair catch or a decision type deal. We're comfortable with Eddie in that situation. You know, felt like it was a good time to make the swap. Not that we're uncomfortable with Tariq at all, but at that point, we're about to go into a 2-minute drive. He's likely to have a part in that. Wanted to make sure that we made the right decision as far as our personnel.
During the game, though, did you sense Tariq sort of maybe started to get in his own head about kind of, instead of just cutting up the field vertically, going horizontally a little bit too much?
Yeah, well, he multiple times, no. A couple of those returns that we had up were sideline type returns. We have middle returns, we have sideline returns, we have what we call seam returns, and there was a couple of sideline type returns. We don't have anything drawn up where he goes backwards and spins and does that, but you know, that's Tariq's creativity and some of the places he finds himself. He's got ultimate confidence, as he should, about his ability in the open field. And you know, there was one he'd like to have back, but I didn't feel like that theme was there throughout the night.
Jeff, we haven't gotten to see you guys practice really since Taquan was added to the roster. Does he have return ability, and if so, what does he do well?
Yeah, well, he returned kickoffs in the preseason for these guys, for the Ravens. You know, he's got a similar skill set to Tariq. You know, size-wise, he's similar in that regard. He does run well. You know, he's got more kickoff return than punt return background. But you know, and it's really hard in practice to tell, you know, return game, because you know how good a certain player could be in practice, because you know the pressure of live bullets coming at you, and you know, decision making, and there's so many plays on punt return that you're making a guy miss, and you know, and it's not like in practice we're going 100 miles an hour trying to tackle our returner. So putting those guys in those situations as much as we can to trying to get evaluation, but until we get more game experience with him, it'll be tough to say exactly what he does well.
Jeff, in the first 5 weeks, only 2 touchdowns, I think, and kick returns, both of them punts. As somebody who coaches, you know, coverage and returns, what do you think about like the big play almost being kind of taken out of the game, or certainly neutralized?
Yeah, early on so far this season, when you look around the league, you see more people. I've seen more people aiming for touchbacks on kickoffs, and certainly there's a lot of kickers in this league that if they want to, it's going to be out the back of the end zone every time. In terms of the punt return stuff, I mean, punters are good, you know, and usually hang time negates returns. With that, as the season goes on, as the temperatures start to change, That ball flight will not be up in the air quite as long. It won't be out there as far. You start to go through the roster attrition. You get some new players out there around the league, and you see some of those things come up. But, you know, comparatively between this year and last year after 5 weeks, I don't know what the numbers would be there. But, you know, we're certainly trying our hardest to appear, you know, in the big play reel on a weekly basis.
So the way the game is, I guess, being played now, I mean, just for an extreme example, would Hester have the same impact today that he had 10 years ago?
Yeah, it's tough to say that. I know this. The punters are better now than they were 10 years ago in terms of having different strategies to take returners out of the game. You can't eliminate them totally. You're trying your best to negate, you know, their impact on the game from a coverage perspective. He's the best that's ever done it. To say that he wouldn't have the same impact, that'd be tough to say. But, you know, one of the things at least from a punt return perspective that's different this year than it was last year, they're calling holds and stuff really tight on the inside. There's some things that have been bigger plays that are getting negated by some of those things that that's been officiated a little bit differently. I mean, and we all have to abide by those same rules. We're not calling it any different from week 1, from the preseason, week 5. But I would guess that would have an impact. It certainly impacted us, and the one Tariq, you know, had about a 30, 35, whatever it was, that return.
Jeff, their punter has been in the league a long time, Sam Cook. What has he really built his reputation on, and what are you guys wary of?
Yeah, he's probably the most unique punter in the league, in my opinion. He has, I think they wrote an article about it last year and said 9, but he has a lot of different styles of punts. You know, he's going to hit his minus style punt, conventional punt right. He's going to do that left. He's going to hit rugbies to his left. He's going to hit rugbies to the right. He's got kind of a low liner yank type deal to his left to our right. I mean, and he keeps you on your toes, keeps you guessing in terms of what style of punt is he going to use on this particular punt. And you got to be on point from a returner standpoint with the communication, with the decision making, you know, being able to communicate to your guys, because if you're not ready for that stuff, you know, it'll bite you.
The majority of kickoffs in the league these days that are returned don't reach the 25-yard line. So is there maybe an incentive in certain circumstances to try to kick it shorter, maybe invite the returner to try to bring it out, knowing if you have good coverage teams, you can catch them even closer to the end zone?
Sure. Yep.
I mean, why do most kickers just say, "Forget it, I want to blast it out of the end zone"? Do you think that's a?
Yeah, it's tough to say, you know, league wide what the decision making is. At times, I mean, if you've got an elite leg strength kicker, and the guy's able to put it out the back, you're really talking about covering kickoffs only after a 15-yard flag from the 20-yard line. Even at that point, guys are still able to reach the end zone. So sometimes it may have to do with, you know, we can pick up an extra 8 minutes of practice this week on something else if we just blast it out the back kickoff coverage-wise. You may have to make some roster decisions and say, you know, whereas in the past, boy, we really need these two guys up for kickoffs. Well, if you can eliminate that with the kicker, sometimes those decisions are made. You know, as the season goes on, I think everybody kind of finds out who they are, what they're good at, and strategically plays into it, along with the opponent that you're playing. I mean, all those things kind of factor in.
Do you think the NFL is going to ever get rid of the kickoff at some point? It seems like the rules have trended in that direction where, you know, the injury factor is so high, and they try to make it more.
Yeah, I would hate to see that, to say that it's tough to foresee that somewhere down the road. You know, it may happen. I'm certainly not encouraging that.
Jeff, given Pat's perfect passer rating, any plans to expand his passing repertoire?
Yeah, well, you know, that play, you know, works against that team and that look. Pat can throw the ball, though. You know, there's certain things that return teams do that defenses do that when you have a guy who can throw, it certainly opens up the book on how you're able to react to those. You know, we'll see if we can improve his passer rating, I guess, but hopefully we don't hurt it at some point.
Anything else? Thanks, guys.
Yep.
think about it. Think of Olympia. He's going to win the record.
Okay, who's leading off?
A lot was made before the season early about the offense getting an identity, run-based, smash mouth, and so forth. Does the defense have an identity yet? Does it need one? Is it have personality type of defense?
We just need to be able to, stop the different types of offenses that we see week in and week out. Offensively, you can do what you want week in and week out. Defensively, we've got to be able to stop the various different offenses that we see from week to week. So, some weeks that's going to be playing a lot of zones. Some weeks be playing a lot of man. Some weeks it's going to be playing more of a loaded box. Some weeks it's not. So I guess the identity is we need to be a versatile defense that can handle the variety of offenses that we'll see.
How big of a boost is it to get Danny Trevathan back this week?
Well, it should help, especially in light of Timu's injury right now. So we were short. We ended that game with only 2 ILBs, so we're back up to 3 right now. So he'll definitely help us coming back.
Vic, I think you guys are one of 3 teams without interception so far this season. Christian Jones got his hands on the ball. I think Adrian almost had a read on one. Do you feel like you're close? Do you feel like those takeaways could be coming?
I hope so. We need them. Doing a lot of good things, but we're not getting the ball taken away. So when we get close, we got to take advantage of our opportunities.
What is the frustration for you now? This is the 3rd year where you guys have been toward the bottom in the league, now at the bottom of the league in takeaways. Just you guys are in position, but you can't get it done.
So what's the question?
Yeah, what's the frustration for you?
It's frustrating, obviously. We'd like to get them. We need them as a team. It would help everybody if we could get some, especially if we can get them where it turns the field around and we can give a short field to our offense.
Coach, what specific adjustments do you make going up against Joe Flacco, and how do you contain him?
Well, we just got to be able to play our defense. He's got good weapons on the outside at Macklin and Wallace. They got a good crew of tight ends. And they're a team that's committed to running the football. That's what they would like to do, be successful running the ball and mix in the shots in the passing game. And Flacco is obviously very capable of throwing the deep balls. He's strong-armed, accurate, and stays alive in the pocket. So, we got to be able to mix it up, play various coverages, and, play our game against them.
What are your impressions of Akeem's effectiveness and ability now compared to when he first got into the scheme, when he got here last year?
Just a little bit more consistency, more knowledge of what we're doing, too, obviously. I think that's the biggest thing. And just improving his techniques a little bit. A lot of little bits end up making a big difference.
What are some of those techniques that?
Just bend the knees just a little bit more, be exact in his alignments and his assignments, and not somewhat be guessing sometimes.
Vic, with Willie Young out, how much of a concern is there, if any, about how much of a workload Pernell McPhee can handle as he gets more and more with Young out?
Yeah, it's a concern. We probably loaded him up a little bit too much this past game, but that's kind of the way the game was going. Like to not have to play him that much, but we'll see how it goes.
What were your impressions of Isaiah Irving through the preseason?
He was a guy who early in the OTAs and in the first few weeks of training camp, I wouldn't have, said very many good things about him other than that he was a great guy. But at some point there in training camp, maybe after the second preseason game, all the coaching points and the teaching somehow started to sink in for the kid. And he started playing better. And, had his 3rd preseason game was good, and then his last preseason game was better. So I think he's a poster child for, you just got to stay with it, particularly with young guys in training camp. At some point, the light comes on a little bit. I'm not saying his is fully illuminated yet, but he hit a point there where he started getting better instead of just being, nothing.
What are the skills that come to the surface then?
He's got good speed. He's athletic. He'll play hard.
Starting with the young player theme, Leonard Floyd had one of his better games on Monday night. What contributed to him being so effective, and how can you get that out of him more consistently going forward?
Well, I just think he, played the way he's capable of playing. That game was a little bit different the way it was going. We were getting into some obvious passing third downs, which always helps. He's a guy that's versatile, so, we'll use him the way we need to use him on a week-to-week basis based on who we're playing. And that pass game, he got some more pass rushes and obvious pass than maybe he had in previous games.
His hole late in the game. What got him into trouble there?
The officiating.
Kyle Fuller health, I know, is obviously a big factor, but what have you seen from him to this point in the season? Have you been pleased with his performance today?
Well, he's been our most available cornerback. After a year where he had zero availability, so that's a big improvement. And I like the way he's playing. I like his mindset. I like his attitude. He's playing with more confidence. So I'm glad we have him playing the way he is right now.
What have you liked about what you've gotten from Eddie Goldman now through 5 weeks?
Eddie's a solid force in the running game. He holds the point very well. He can get off blocks and make tackles, not just hold the point. And he can offer us some pass rush, too. Been pleased with him.
That growth that you kind of expected from him last year before the ankle injury, are you seeing that?
Yeah, I'm seeing him pick it up. I mean, last year in training camp, we're talking about 16. He really had a good camp and was ready, I thought, to have a good year. And then, I think he only played a game and a half or something like that. And I think he's now picked it back up there. Not immediately he didn't in camp, but now he has.
How much Jonathan Bullard seems to have slowed down for him since the preseason?
Slowed down?
Just in terms of being noticeable, making a difference in that stuff.
Yeah, he hadn't had quite as many reps as he would like, but we're not discouraged by his play.
Christian Jones, what do you think of him the other day? And how comfortable do you think he is inside?
He's getting comfortable there. He's played there. In 15, he was full-time in there. Last year, he was back and forth between both, and now he's full-time again there. So I think he's getting better. I thought he had a lot of nice plays the other night. He wasn't perfect by any means, but I think he's growing and improving.
Rick, you've had injuries and absences this year, just like you did last year, but can you see the difference in how you've been able to withstand that better this year? Is that noticeable to you, how much the depth factor, I guess?
Well, it is right now. I mean, it got to the point last year, when you're playing with people that you've signed after the season, that you've gotten off the streets, that weren't in training camp with you, that takes it to another level for two reasons. One, they weren't with you, so learning and mentally and everything you like to do. And two, they're on the streets for a reason many times. So, we haven't gotten to that point yet.
But there is a breaking point, I imagine, losing almost a player to start from you.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you gotten much look at Nick this week in terms of seeing where he's at as he's tried to blend back in?
No, he's only, I believe, partaken in some scout team work this week.
I think a lot of people thought this would be a top 10 defense before the season started. Do you still think this is a top 10 defense?
Oh, I don't know. It depends how you measure it. There's a lot of different ways to measure that. You got to be consistent. Every week's a new entity. I think last year after 13 games, we were ranked 7th in some category, and then the dam broke the last 3 weeks. I don't know. We hope to be. We're striving to be.
Gonna watch the baseball game?
I hope to, or at least listen to it, and we'll see how it goes.
Scouting report on what people out.
I said last week, they needed to win with 3 runs. That 8th inning in Game 2 is the killer. They're going to be hard. Washington's hard to score against. They got good pitching. But Rizzo and Bryant need to get the termites out of their bats tonight. All right?